Hello and welcome to the Claret Blue podcast. We're back with one of our little unscripted videos, I like to call this. Not that the other stuff is planned to a degree.
Yeah,
like
we're not reading an
auto cue.
Yeah.
None of them are unscripted, but I suppose in the sense that I've got no like pre-planned thoughts or questions to ask you specifically. So we'll see where this goes. Today's video is almost a love letter to Youri Tielemans, to nick one of Matt Kendrick's recent podcast titles. Somebody that was scapegoated, I suppose, to a certain extent. Somebody that was criticised in his early Villa career. Somebody that we thought would maybe be unfit and whatnot, and didn't quite fit in. Where would he play? What position would he play? Who comes in the team for him? Who comes out of the team for him? He's now become a player that is not undroppable, but somebody who's very important to Unai Emery. This podcast was recorded before Boubacar Kamara's ACL injury, so do please bear that in mind. That may change some of the context of the conversation. But we wanted to post it anyway because it's nice, isn't it, to be positive about one of our players.
Unai Emery's basically come in and looked at Tielemans and thought, well, I know what I want to do with him, and I'm surprised by where he's playing now. It's not something I expected. I thought he'd be like a deep midfielder. Just to put in,
when we did the lowdown on Youri Tielemans with Jordan Blackwell, who's like the Leicester version of you for Reach, he was kind of, there was questions about his fitness and the kind of like Tielemans head down wobble thing that he does when he's running back and he's out of fit, he's feeling it.
Tielemans head down wobble thing.
Tielemans head wobble. Yeah, like when he's
bobblehead.
He said like when he looks unfit, he'll run away and he'll be like he does that when he's like struggling.
Right.
Which I can't say I've seen it at Villa, to be honest. But the theory then was that I think I asked him like, could he play as a number 10 or off the left? I could quite see him on that left-hand side role, covering for Jacob Ramsey or rotating with him. Do you think he's got the capabilities to do something like that, or is he purely a central player?
No, I have to say, based on what I know of Villa and what I've seen, I would say that Ramsey and McGinn would be much better at that than Tielemans would be.
Okay.
If Villa wanted to get the best out of him, I think he would have to play in one of the positions that you've said, either Kamara or Louise place.
For Tielemans to be operating in the roles that he is now, whether it's like starting off the left in a 4-4-2 like McGinn does off the right, he's coming into those central positions and supporting Watkins, getting into the box, and that's something that nobody, I don't think, saw coming. So
apart from
of course. So fair play to him for recognising those attributes.
I think we basically explained why it took him a period of time to adapt, not only to his new teammates and the coaching staff that Villa have, but it is a new position for him because he hasn't been playing there in his career previously. He has always been a player who sits pretty deep, pretty much deeper. He gets amongst the goals and gets assists and stuff. He's a very creative player. As I said earlier, at Leicester, he was a sensational talent for most of his time there. In the last season, it obviously tailed off, and I don't know whether that was because in the summer previous to that he was expecting a move, maybe, and that didn't come through. And that can obviously impact a player's mindset or whatever it may be. Leicester obviously struggling at the time too, so you can't really take that into much consideration. But the position he's playing now, it looks like he's been playing there for 5 years and he hasn't. And weirdly, it's he got a bit of criticism for taking quite a while to settle, because let's be real, he was quite poor when he first joined, and I feel a bit bad now for trying to criticise him, because actually you flip it on its head and you say, well, he's adapted pretty quickly considering the change that he's made in terms of his position. And God, you can imagine the amount of tactical work that goes into that from Emery as well. He's not just standing higher up on the pitch and receiving the ball closer to goal. There's a whole lot more to it than that. It's not literally just where he's playing. It's all the tactical structure that comes into that, and players that he's playing with that he hasn't before. So yeah, huge change for him, but he's taken it pretty well now. He seemed to have kind of almost like a click of the finger sort of thing. Like, he was struggling a little bit, and then I think he was like the Fulham game. I think he started. I think that was his first start in the Premier League for Villa, and he was very good. And since then, he's been very good, and he rarely put a foot wrong. And
a lot of people wrong.
Yeah, again,
us as well.
Yeah. Why I was wrong about you too? We seem to be doing that too much. We say about Torres is massively important to Villa, and he absolutely is. And I think that is one of, if not the key reason why Villa have had struggled in that blip that they had. But Tielemans was missing as well during that. Villa played exceptionally well against Man City, as did Tielemans. They then played very well in the first half against Arsenal. Then Tielemans comes off at half time. So again, is there a coincidence there? I don't think so. He is, you're right, Dan, fundamental now, really. It's his shirt to lose. And you were thinking the back end of last season, Jacob Ramsey, so important. And he is still important, of course, and a very good player. But Tielemans is now looking, part of the furniture, I suppose, at Villa.
So I think there's a bit of revisionism, if that's the word. But I seem to remember talking about when he joined that it was going to be Tielemans and Douglas Luiz fighting for the same position, for the same shirt. That
so did I.
He's a central midfield player. Douglas Luiz starts every week. Where does Tielemans fit in? I don't think anyone was talking about him displacing Jacob Ramsey.
Emery said something along the lines of, "Oh, we can play the 4." And I remember picking my head up in a press conference and thinking, What? Because Ramsey and then you got these guys 4 in midfield. How does a box doesn't work? Because Tielemans doesn't play that high, and Emery's just seen something.
We have given credit to Emery, and rightly so. But if Ramsey was fit all the way through the summer from last season into this with form, I still don't think Tielemans would have broken into the team.
Maybe not.
Ramsey's injuries played a key part as well.
Yeah, possibly so. And again, it's like the Torres and Mings thing. Where does that work? True, yeah. But he clearly had a plan, because I said he mentioned when he joined, you can play. As a 2, or we could play as a 4. So he clearly thought, Tielemans will come in and play in that role, which would have left Ramsey out, because McGinn, Luiz and Kamara obviously basically are undroppable, really. You got the captain and the 2 holding midfielders. So there was clearly a plan there all along. So, definitely Emery gets the credit there, but I do think a lot of it is down to Tielemans as well, in terms of how he's adapted and taken on those coaching points, because he was criticised quite a lot, and that must have been quite annoying for him to deal with. And then his comments about not playing not playing too much in like the first international break of the year, of the season, sorry, those were taken out of context, and you're just thinking, this, all of a sudden Tielemans has got quite a lot of stick, and he's got a lot to prove, and then in the space of a couple more weeks, all of a sudden it's like, that's why we signed him, and that's why Emery was so the recruitment team as well, Swedish people there, they were really obviously pleased to sign Tielemans, but it was almost like, we know that we've really got a cracking deal here. Obviously it was a free, but to get a player of that quality, because they knew what they were getting, and as I said earlier, why some teams weren't competing with Villa for him. Obviously Roma, AC Milan, those teams were, but the Premier League is the Premier League, and yet to be one of the only top teams going for him was, looking back now, is a shock. On that kind of fitness and fatigue thing that a lot of people questioned when he first joined, and the thing about Tielemans doesn't run much, and if he does run, then he looks very slow and lethargic and sluggish. I haven't seen that in the last few weeks, which I think firstly is because of his fitness must have just improved. Not that it was particularly bad before, I'm not aware of that. But secondly, again, positionally, where he is on the pitch, he doesn't have to go up and down. He's allowed that freedom to operate. And to be honest, I think Douglas Luiz probably looks at it and gets a bit jealous sometimes and thinks, I'd like to have that kind of level of, like we saw against Sheffield United. As soon as you gave Luiz space, he was, he looked like a Barcelona midfielder. That element of freedom as well, I think, helps Tielemans a lot. He's not constantly having to look over his shoulder and track back and things like that. And by the way, he gets out of those situations very well for a player who isn't quick. When we signed him, the key stat that kind of drew me to him was his ability to beat a man. He had one of the highest kind of dual success rate in terms of getting past someone. I forget what the stats are called now, which is frustrating. But he kind of wriggles out of those situations very well for a player who can't knock it and run. He kind of just steps out of danger quite easily because he's quick and he sees everything so much quicker than anyone else. I remember out in America watching him against, I think it was Fulham or something, and every pass he knew it straight away, and I was like, oh wow, like if he can. Because at that point I was thinking, he's going to be playing deep or he's going to be this or that. And I was thinking, well, if he can get everything else, there's clearly something there because he was just so quick with it. He's just so intelligent. Every ball, he just knew it straight away. And if they were gone, they were out. And now that he's doing that higher up where he can really make an impact and keep attacks moving, keep them sustained, and he tries things as well. After every game, his pass success rate is never as good as Luiz or Kamara. But that's okay because he's trying things. It might be 70%. But if 2 passes work, Villa might score 2 goals. And on that Luiz thing about maybe being jealous, I say that because he's got freedom, whereas Luiz, I think, is better in the holding role because he's just more able, I think, and more physically. He's played in that role for quite a few years now, that 6th role with Villa. and now he's not playing the 6 role now because it's Kamara, but he works better in that position, and Tielemans playing further forward. Yeah, it definitely brings the best out of him as well.
Let's say Jacob Ramsey is a player that moves on, then this question kind of goes out the window. If Jacob Ramsey is involved in Aston Villa for future seasons to come and Tielemans is playing as well as he is now, can you play McGinn, Luiz, Kamara, Tielemans, Ramsey all in the same side?
I think you can do it, but Leon Bailey, I think you're right there. There are options, and the fact that we can get that amount of players on the pitch without it, causing a huge upset to the dynamic, I think is massively, encouraging. Really, again, of course, I don't think that would happen because of Bailey, Diaby, but what you say is right, because they're all flexible, and I think that's the key thing.
I think you've got obviously, forget Watkins and the defenders and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think Kamara is the only player that can do the role he does.
Yes.
I'm thinking back to VR now, and I'm not trying to draw it in midair. But you got like Kamara here, Luiz next to him, Tielemans and McGinn either side.
But you're right. But we've seen McGinn drop. I think
all the players around Kamara, you could put those anywhere almost. I think Luiz could play slightly further forward. I think McGinn could play on the left. Tielemans could play as the second strike.
Yeah.
Like, I think those are quite fluid.
We all know where their strongest position is.
Yeah.
But you're right. Luiz can bump up, McGinn can drop down, and we say, they can do those different roles. They are doing them though, because in a game, Tielemans, it's not as it's not as simple as
playing off the left.
He plays off the left and he gives the ball to McGinn, and McGinn. It's not FIFA. They are fluid. They are changing. This is why Luiz has got so many goals and assists this season. He doesn't just stand next to Kamara like the sticks and the footballers. Toe football. It's not like that. Of course, it's more fluid. There's more changes, and Tielemans is good for that, because again, when he has freedom, he can lose his mark because he's so intelligent. He's like that VR thing we did. His scan rate would have been it might have been as good as mine.
I've still got whiplash from that.
He's a top player, and I'm just glad that he's found and settled on a role now. And this seems to be a common theme with Emery. He seems to pick up a player and we're questioning, okay, well, where's he going to fit in? And all of a sudden he's playing a different role, and we're thinking, how has he seen that? Just as a side point as well, he's only 26.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre, because he feels like he probably should be about, nearly 30.
He's played a lot of minutes. He's played from an early age and played week in, week out at international level as well. With Belgium, he's played a lot. So I think that was what some of the concerns might have been internally amongst football clubs.
His legs.
He's going to burn out at some point. He's probably got the body of or the legs of a 32-year-old with the amount of minutes he's played, and that will catch up with him. So we don't want to give him a massive contract on big money, because when he's 28 he might be knackered. That could still be the case, of course, but there's a reason there aren't any signs of that at the moment. And a player that's on the decline.
And again, positionally, where he's playing, of course he's still running and putting in a shift. Of course he's playing top level football, but he's not being asked to go up and down and make 12 tackles in a game like someone like a Luiz would, and get involved in that way. He, as I say, has more freedom to kind of
pick his moments.
Yes, exactly. So the kind of the all action Tielemans that was at Leicester isn't necessarily the case for Villa now. Emery's basically just selected Youri Tielemans and picked his best attributes, if that makes sense, and we're just going to focus on those ones rather than ask you to do everything else that you probably don't want to do, and that other players can probably do better than you. So it's finding where that sounds like a bit of a luxury, but to have it in a team that's doing so well, and nothing's going through Tielemans and Tielemans only. We've got John McGinn over there. We've got Bailey, Watkins. He's just a part of a system that's just working so well. And again, I've said before, we signed Pau Torres, and you're thinking, okay, well, how's that dynamic gonna work? And it works perfectly. It's like, next year, how are we going to evolve again under Emery? We're going to sign a striker and play him as a left wing back. I have no idea. So that's what's exciting as well.
Yeah,
he's proving that he can not only sign these players and attract them, but he's changing their game to a level that they wouldn't have even anticipated. Torres coming into the Premier League probably thought, I can play my game because I know Emery well, but he probably didn't think he'd be adapting this quickly and be so fundamental to a team that is chasing, probably, I don't, are we out of the title race? Probably. But up until now, up until his injury, we were there. So, really exciting. And for Tielemans, really happy that he seems to have settled now and he's doing his thing. So, should be improving even more in the next couple of months.
Right, John, I think that'll do us for this little mini episode just about Youri Tielemans. Get involved in the comments as always and share your opinions on Youri Tielemans and how he fits in. John, thanks for your time as always. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Plenty more content on Claret Blue coming up, so stay subscribed and we'll see you on the next one.